Hi, and welcome back to U.S. History with Mr. Snyder. And today we're getting into World War I and how the U.S. got involved and went from neutrality to a part of a world war. Our learning targets for today, we're going to identify the causes of World War I. We'll describe the course and character of the war, and then we will describe why the United States enters the war on the side of the Allies. This happens later in the war, and pretty much the war is almost over, but we're the deciding factor in winning for the Allies. So what caused World War I? It was actually four things. We've got your nationalism, your militarism, your imperialism, and the alliance system between countries. And then the triggering point after all of these things have built up is the assassination of Archduke Francis Ferdinand. Nationalism, let's go through these one at a time. Nationalism is the devotion to one's country. Europeans, ever since some treaties that had divided up parts of Europe, they reject the idea that many different ethnic groups can come from one country. Instead, they think that one nation should contain one ethnic group, and these evolving beliefs lead to an intense mixture of the races and the nationalism. So you believe your race is superior, and if your race is the only one in your country, then you feel that your country is superior. These evolving beliefs lead to an intense form of nationalism, and France longs to reclaim a strip of land between France and Germany called the Alsace-Lorraine, and we'll get into that later. It's resource rich. There's lots of resources there, and France wants it to be a part of France and not Germany. Militarism. Countries during this time, late 1800s, early 1900s, begin stockpiling weapons and increasing their military size, and that goes along with imperialism later on. Germany and Britain have the largest army and navy, respectively. So Germany, army, Britain, navy. And this glorification of the military leads to increased military size and greater technology, since we're putting greater emphasis on the military. So World War I is going to have more troops and more technologically advanced weapons than any war before it. Here is the size of the different militaries. You can see the European countries, and then the United States, who has less than 100,000 troops and just 10 large warships. Britain has 29. Germany has 17. So they have a lot larger standing military than we do. Imperialism. Competing imperialist countries want lands that are rich in these raw materials and new places to make military bases. So these countries are starting to fight and brush up against France and Britain that already have the huge empires. Germany, Italy, Belgium, Japan, and the United States are all racing to carve out these colonies in Africa, and we talked about the United States trying to get control in the Pacific and in China as far as imperialism goes, because the world's only so big, and if we're starting to claim a lot of the lands in it, then there's going to be some tension there. And finally, the alliance system. You're going to have to know the countries in each of these alliances. The Triple Alliance is known as the Central Powers, and if we had to give it another name, these would eventually become the Axis powers in World War II. But Germany, Austria-Hungary, or the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Austria and Hungary were one country back then. The Ottoman Empire, which is the country of Turkey, essentially now, and Italy form the Triple Alliance, and they back each other up. France, Russia, and Great Britain, and eventually the United States, join to form the Triple Entente. And you can remember that because Entente is French, and that is also the Allied powers. Now the leaders of these 6 countries, 6 or 7 or 8 countries, however many you count, can act recklessly because their friends will back them up. And the triggering point is the assassination of the heir to a throne. And Archduke Francis Ferdinand is the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, and they take a trip to Sarajevo, which is the capital city of Bosnia, and Bosnia was a part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. and a few ethnic Serbs from Serbia, who was a smaller country in the Triple Entente, felt that Bosnia belonged to their ethnic group and not Austria-Hungary. Remember, one ethnic group, one country. So they and a secret group called the Black Hand assassinate Francis Ferdinand and his wife. This triggers Austria-Hungary to declare war on Serbia, and it drags the rest of the alliance into it as well. So pretty much all 8 of these countries and smaller countries around the world are at war with one another. And the course of the Great War is trench warfare. Trench warfare, 450 miles along the French and Belgium and German borders right here is trenches, just these little 5, 6, 7, 8-foot trenches dug into the ground, and people would live in there essentially, looking across the line toward the other side. And they would fire at each other, and they would bombard each other with artillery, and then storm over the middle part into the opposing people's trench and either kill them or basically live in there. And the other group would retreat back to a trench in their behind their lines. So the Western Front, this front between France and Germany, is the main area where all the fighting takes place. Trench foot and disease were rampant in these trenches. There's rats. There's feces because there's no place to go to the bathroom. So life in the trenches was very, very bleak. And the place between the two trenches is a place we call no man's land. And also, the course of this Great War, as it's first called, because we can't have a World War I without a World War II. This war, it's a war of attrition. So it's basically how many men can your country come up with to fight, because these men just keep dying and dying and dying because of all this new technology we're using. There's millions of casualties in this war. Here's some new deadly technology. We come up with machine guns. These artillery field guns can shoot longer and kill more people than ever before. Poison gas is really nasty, and they come up with gas masks to fight this, but just setting off gas and people breathing it in, it would basically eat your lungs from the inside out, and it's nasty. It's not allowed to be used anymore in warfare. Submarines, or German U-boats as they call them, use torpedoes as well as guns on the decks to sink ships. We have tanks, some very primitive tanks and armored cars. And airplanes are actually used for reconnaissance or spying, throwing bombs out the side and fighting, but it does not prove decisive. Planes don't play into World War I much at all. So, this is happening in Europe. Should the U.S. intervene? The people who say yes are called interventionists. They think that the war affects the American economic ties with Britain and France, so we should intervene on the side of the Allies. The no people are called isolationists, and they think it's none of America's business. We should isolate ourselves from the horrible hostilities and millions of people getting killed. We don't want Americans sent over there getting killed. And then there are the people who say we should become involved on a limited basis, and this is President Wilson. He and those people are known as internationalists, and they want to play an active role in ending the fighting without entering the war. So how does the United States become involved? Germany begins unrestricted submarine warfare in the Atlantic Ocean. That means they're going to shoot anything they see, passenger ships, anything they see. And they use these U-boats to blockade Britain and not let anything through to Britain. And they also sink the Lusitania, which was a British passenger ship with Americans aboard. And so Americans were killed in that attack. And it was secretly carrying weapons down below, so Germany was right to sink it, but we didn't think they should know that. And so they continue to sink passenger ships after many warnings from the United States. The U.S. finally enters the war after the German foreign minister, so like our Secretary of State, his name is Arthur Zimmerman, he sends a telegram to Mexico offering an alliance. So, and if Mexico and Germany wins, then Mexico would get back Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona because we took it from Mexico. And so this Zimmerman note is intercepted by the British and shown to the United States. And then in 1917, we're no longer able to keep the country out of war. Wilson asks Congress for a declaration of war against Germany, and we go to war because of this Zimmerman note. So here is a summary of everything we talked about, the causes of the war, the nature of the warfare, and the reasons for U.S. involvement. And that's all I have for you today. That's the causes of World War I and how we get involved. Make sure you thoroughly fill out those learning targets, and I'll see you in class. Have a nice night. Goodbye.